Thinking of investing, working, or starting a business in the cannabis industry? We've got you covered right here on Plant Problems. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, Plant Problems takes a different approach to cannabis than what you're seeing and hearing from the mainstream media. Come along with Tony and be in the know about how to invest, work, or start a cannabis business. Let's get the show started with your host, Tony Frischknecht.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Plant Problems. This is Tony Frischknecht here, your host. I've got with me today Andy Cohen. He is the buying assistant for Aaron Equipment Company. And I met Andy at the MJ BizCon convention in December this year. And the reason why I have him on is because there are only a few people, very few people that I know that are working and building a company like he is. He is actually on the equipment buy and resale of all kinds of manufacturing equipment. So, Andy, I want to welcome you for being on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be on here. I'm very excited to have a talk with you about what's going on over on my side of the fence.
Well, first of all, I'd like to share with the people, again, I have Andy on because I think he's got a valuable service that they're providing. In no way whatsoever am I connected with Aaron companies and their sales. I just think that this is valuable for the business owners out there. So I just wanted to give that to everybody, and my listeners make sure they understand that part of it. Andy, you know, you're out of Wooddale, Illinois, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so you're in the big land of where Chicago and everything's happening. So you've got to be seeing some huge moves happening in the last 6 months to a year, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's been a ton of movement on this industry. So I'd like to talk just a little bit really quickly about Aaron Equipment, just so people have a sense of who we are and what we do. Aaron Equipment is a used equipment dealer. We are the world's largest stocking inventory dealer. We have been around for 83 years. It's a family business of which I'm the fourth generation. And when I came to work here, I was told by my superiors, aka my boss and uncles, my dad and uncles, to find an industry, make it my own. And I chose cannabis because it's an emerging market. There wasn't a lot of set players in it, and I felt that there was a opening for us to make some money. With that, we started attending shows where I met you, and we created actually since I saw you, we've created and established, sent live a used cannabis equipment marketplace where we are making services available for buying of used equipment, selling of used equipment, consulting, financing, all that sort of stuff. And if I get back to your original question about what I've been seeing, there's been a lot of movement, especially here in Chicago, because of the legalization that occurred on January 1st. Chicago has a supply problem currently where there's not enough product to go around. So Illinois is giving out 40 new licenses on July 1st of this coming July. And basically that's when companies will find out if they have the license to produce, grow, and process cannabis in all its forms. And that's when they can buy machinery. So we're gearing up for that, basically.
Yeah. That's a common trend. It seems that everybody sells out first. It's happened. It's happened in so many states now. It's nothing new. It's funny that the knee-jerk reaction of what states do when it comes down, like they're releasing more licenses, where it's basically you've got this inflow of people that may or may not have ever been in a dispensary and they want to buy something, right? So they go to the dispensary. Got lines out the door. They want to be a part of history, everything else, and then they run out in 3 days, right?
Exactly. Even last year, there was no flower left on January 1st this year in Chicago.
Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
It happens in every new market. It's funny. So I would think that people would have gotten used to it by now, but I guess that's not the case. And I guess the other good thing is that in Illinois, for the people that are building businesses there that may have not gotten the license, they're like, oh, I still have another opportunity to do so. The other reason why I have you on is because there's been an interesting dip in the market, especially over the last 12 months. And so I'm sure you're starting to see some of those, potentially some of the asset sell-offs that are coming with some of the guys outside of Illinois, especially, the guys that are connected with Canada, with the restructuring that's starting to happen up there and the slowdown of money. I'm sure you're starting to see these assets. Are these guys reaching out to you? Are you finding them, a little bit of both, or how is that system working for Aaron Equipment?
So I would say a little bit of both. Well, not a little bit of both, a lot of both. We get a lot of inbound requests to sell equipment, and we've seen that pick up in the past few weeks, a couple months really. It's actually interesting to see how the market right now is not a very solid, this is how much this piece is worth. It's still fluctuating and figuring itself out. But one of the interesting things that we've seen over the past few weeks, couple months, is that they're a part of this shakeout with what you said with Canada, and even in the U.S. there's been a decent amount of shakeout, people that started businesses that are now either going out of business or looking to get out. And so for that reason, there has been a flood of supply of machinery to the market. And this has not only driven down used prices, but it's also driven down new prices. We are often seeing people want to sell their used equipment for more than a new one currently costs.
It's kind of backwards then, somewhat, because they bought the top dollar at the top price then, right?
Exactly, yes. So also something interesting we've seen, I hope people who are listening to this that own some of this machinery and may have heard this from an OEM. So one of the common things we've heard from people looking to sell their equipment is, the OEM, which, by the way, for those who don't know, OEM means original equipment manufacturer, which is someone who manufactures equipment. So these OEMs are telling their customers, hey, this was 2 years ago, a couple years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, saying, hey, our demand is so high right now that we don't have any of this machine in stock. So if you want to sell your machine eventually, you can sell it at just below new, because whoever wants to buy it can get it right away versus having to wait 6 months lead time for us. But with the drop in demand, drop in prices, and overall shakeout of the market, there's a lot of OEMs that are sitting on inventory, and thus that dramatically reduces the chance that someone's going to buy a used one for close to new, because they could just pay for a new one and get it immediately and not wait.
So what you're saying is that it used to be that way, but now it's not. You kind of have to,
yes,
as an owner, you've got to adjust your, how do you say it? You got to adjust your expectations to what kind of cost you're going to really recoup on this asset, right?
Right. And that's not to say that the market couldn't go up or down, or, either way. It's really, it's nobody can say for sure, but adjusting expectations is something that I've been working on a lot when I speak with people who are looking to sell their equipment, because, at the end of the day, we are a used equipment dealer. We do want to make money. And if we are going to list something that, is way overpriced, it can be extremely detrimental, not only to that specific situation of not being able to make money off it, but if a new customer, someone who's never been to our website, comes and sees, they know their stuff, and they see a used machine that's being priced at more than a new one, they'll never come back to our site, because they'll be like, these guys, don't know what they're talking about. They're out of their mind. So, it's something that we have to be careful about when we're choosing which opportunities to take.
Well, it sounds like you're being cautious, and being cautious is a good thing. And it sounds like you're also trying to find your place in the industry, like so many other companies, right? And being able to do that, and navigate that. I mean, you guys have been in the used equipment industry for, 80 plus years. How are you seeing this different from most other industries on finding your way around? Is it unique in any way, or is it similar to your core business as it is now?
That's a really, really, really great question, actually. I would say that it is alike in several ways and unique in other ways. The things that are similar are the fluctuations. Good news for this industry is that a shakeout doesn't mean a collapse. Very often, a perfect example of that would be ethanol, the production of ethanol gas for fuel. That industry ebbs and flows according to legislation, just like marijuana has. It's become legal, so it's been going up. That's a little bit of a different distinction of legislation, but ethanol usually with different parties of presidents. Under Obama, there was huge subsidies for R&D projects, production of ethanol, alternative fuel sources. But since President Trump's been in office, that's gone away, and that's not specific politically. It's just generally how the parties do their subsidies. So during 2008, 2009, 2010, we started to see a lot of people getting into the ethanol industry, buying all this equipment. It was cheap. There was tax subsidies, and then once all the tax subsidies dried up, and there was no market for it because the government wasn't subsidizing it anymore, it disappeared, and then there's a shakeout, but it always comes back. And I think that's what cannabis is going to be like. I think there's going to be this lull here before it jumps up again as the market figures itself out. I would say the uniqueness of the cannabis industry is the people in it. Being my age at this business, I'm really the only one here besides one other person who's under the age of 33.
Okay.
I think. So that just gives you an idea of what people are like, in companies that we deal with, manufacturing companies, chemical companies, mostly an older crowd, much more business appropriate, much more, I'm trying to find the right way to describe. They're much more formal.
Okay.
And they expect others to be more formal.
Yeah.
And I think the nice thing about cannabis is, everybody is just here to figure out what's going on. Everybody's nice. I think I mentioned when I saw you at the show, the conversations that I had with customers were unlike any other. Number one, because people didn't even consider the fact that used equipment might be out there. We had people walk by our booth, read our banner, and go, wait a second. And then they walk up and go, wait, used equipment, do you have any of this? And I'd say, yes, we have a few of these units. And they'd be like, wow, I've been going around to each OEM's booth and getting prices. I've never thought about the idea of buying used. That's very unique to the cannabis industry because it's well known throughout other industries such as chemical, pharmaceutical, food, cosmetics, that used equipment is a very viable avenue for production. So that's unique. And then again, just the type of people that are there, they're more friendly, more open to helping each other out. I have not had any conversations with cannabis people yet where somebody's like, screw off, I'm busy, which is something I've gotten often in the other industries.
Well, that's probably refreshing for you, especially as a booking assistant. Well, it is really unique, especially people that have been in the industry a long time. We have known nothing but to buy new, only because there hasn't been any option to do otherwise.
Right.
There's been a small particular person buying these extraction machines or these processing machines or packaging machines. And these companies are finally opening their eyes to the amount of interest in the industry. I mean, it's been happening over a couple of years, but more so now. And then guys like you are like, all right, now there's a turnover of equipment. Now we can take advantage of this. And, I think I want to really point out the fact that these guys are still, a lot of them are still running their businesses on as cash comes in, which is unlike 99% of the companies out there. They've got a bit of they either have a business loan of some sorts for their business. And as a cannabis owner, it's really tough to have access to cheap money,
Absolutely. It's interesting that you bring that up. I just want to mention a little tidbit, something that I've been noticing a lot. It's unfortunate, and I feel bad for a lot of these people that are in this situation. It's that you see a lot of people from Canada, which you mentioned, that shakeout is, I think, more advanced right now than the one in the U.S. But a lot of these people actually did buy this equipment on loaned money, on money that they borrowed. And not only did they borrow that, but they borrowed at a significantly higher interest rate because it's cannabis. And whenever they took that loan, I mean, there's still high interest rates for cannabis loans, but for cannabis business loans. But back then they were even higher. I mean, we've seen some people that have been paying 20%
Oh yeah.
interest on their loans.
Yeah.
So when they not only, they come to me telling me, I paid, let's say $100,000 for extraction system, I need to get 75 back for it. And I tell them, right now the market for that price is that piece is at $40,000. Hearing that is just brutal. And I know I mentioned this to you before the call. My father always says, it's like telling somebody their baby is ugly.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to do, and it's unfortunate, but that happens. And I think I've seen that a little bit more in the cannabis industry than I've seen in any other industry that's, blossomed the way this one has. I'm not sure why that is.
Are these people, do they get hostile with you when you talk with them about what's actually going on? Do they want to listen to reason?
Some listen to reason. There are people, most people are very reasonable. They understand. At the very least, they say, I hear you. I'm going to go, another route. I'm going to list it somewhere else. I'm going to sell it somewhere else. And that's always okay. There are, a few people. Obviously, the loud people stick out the most. So, it's a vocal minority. But there are people who get upset and, curse me out or yell at me or tell me I'm freaking crazy for asking that kind of price. And, they think they know it's worth more and yada, yada, yada. And you just kind of have to take it on the chin because that's part of the business. And there has been a few cases where people have chewed me out and then come back and been like, look, you were right. I need to sell this. And so there are some people, and it's totally understandable why they're so emotional. I mean, it's a very emotional, I think, especially at the nascency of an industry. Take, for instance, craft brewing. There's a lot of people that are in it because it's their passion. And when you mix passion with your work, there's obviously a lot of emotion involved, and that always, doesn't meld well, but it's understandable. And we try to, help people as much as they can. Sometimes they think that I'm, that I'm not telling the truth, and I'm just, I'm trying to get their equipment for less money. And if that's how they feel, that's how they feel. But that's not the case. We're just trying to figure out, that's the main thing we do. Sometimes people call in, they're like, hey, what's with this price? It's so high, I can get a new one. And the first thing we say is, we're helping people sell their equipment. We're trying to figure out the market as well. And the first question we ask is, what would you want to pay for it? And that is the market price. Businesses don't set market price. Sellers don't set market prices. It's just what someone is willing to pay for it. And that can change on a case-by-case basis.
It's hard to stomach when your stuff that you paid $1 million for is now only worth $500,000, right?
Yeah, sometimes even less. I mean, we're seeing 40 cents on the dollar right now.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In some situations. The thing is, there is some good news. So most of what I've been talking about with pricing is related directly to extraction equipment.
Okay.
Stuff that takes the cannabis plant, and either you could do hemp or cannabis. One is for THC oil, one is for CBD oil. There's a whole mix you can do. I won't get into that. But there's other equipment such as tanks, which are stainless steel storage tanks, they're basically those big round things that you see in plants around the world that are holding stuff. They may have agitation, which means they have, internal mixers that is mixing whatever's in there around while it sits there. Tanks, reactors, kettles. Reactors and kettles are tanks with specifications for pressurization. So what happens inside is being done at a vacuum. It's a little bit complicated. There's centrifuges, falling film evaporators, white film evaporators, and also packaging equipment that can be sold into other industries. Really, the only other industry that extraction equipment can be sold into would be fish oil, which there's not a lot of plants that do that. It's not a very, in-demand industry. And then perfume and botanicals and essential oils, anything where you're pulling an oil out of a plant. So there is another industry to sell that extraction equipment to. It's just not nearly big enough to handle the influx of.
Where are you seeing in which state are you guys seeing the biggest need for used equipment right now?
Biggest need for used equipment would definitely be Chicago. We're talking to a lot of companies who want to buy equipment, but they simply can't pull the trigger yet because I keep saying Chicago. I mean the entire state of Illinois. Companies are not obviously willing to shell out a bunch of money for equipment that they may not be able to legally use. So we are seeing a lot of demand. It's just delayed, basically unearned revenue. We are seeing a lot of demand for used equipment in Oregon, California, Washington. People are looking to get in and people looking to get out. There's a lot of them, a lot on both sides.
Yeah.
We are seeing a ton of interest from states, federal, that are doing just hemp processing. We had a company in Georgia that we're doing business with, one in Kentucky, and that's places where it's neither recreationally or medically legal to smoke marijuana, but federally hemp is obviously legal. So that also plays in more to our core business as Aaron Equipment outside of cannabis. We obviously like to deal in higher ticket items as far as value goes. The margins are higher. So that requires bigger equipment, higher capacity, which is stuff that we have in stock. I would say that the THC business is in its nascency and it's very infantile. So a lot of the equipment is low capacity, and which we do have, but we tend to help companies scale up and build. And that's what we want. We want to make a name for ourselves right now. So the next upswing, we're there to help people fill out their equipment needs.
So anytime there's, at least as an investor, anytime there's a down in economy, this allows for a lot of opportunity for the investor. So with that said, where do you see the most opportunity in this industry, right? Like today, as we sit today? Is it extraction? Is it the farming side? I mean, is it the processing of the plant side? I mean, where would you feel that makes the most sense, let's say today?
I think that the processing side, the taking of raw materials that others have created and making products and packaging them and selling them, I think that's the money will be made. I could be wrong. I think with harvesting, there's been a significant drop in the price of hemp and the price it brings at market.
It's changed. So in one season, it's changed dramatically from the guys that I've been talking about. Like almost more and maybe 2/3 it's changed in price depending on where you're buying it.
Right, and that creates problems for people who did not forecast for it, because if you have a budget and it's based upon getting X amount for your product and it goes down 2/3 and you don't prepare for it, it can put you out of business. So I think that the growing, until that stabilizes, and I can't, I'm not an expert in any way on that end of the business as far as the market for raw material, but it seems to me from what we're getting from the people who do it, it's not going great. Also, harvesting equipment, grow lights, hydroponics, that sort of stuff has very low resale value. You're almost better off buying new. It's a difference of dollars, tens of dollars, not even hundreds of dollars between new and used for that type of equipment. I do think that the processing is there. I think that, this shakeout going on right now is more of a roll-up and a consolidation. And once it becomes federally legal, which I do think is where it's heading, then that's the situation. And this is speaking from experience with other industries. What happens is there's the little guys, the passion projects, and there's a few small guys that become a little bit bigger, and then there's a shakeout, and a few of those small guys get even bigger, and a few of those small guys drop out, and there's a few big players, and then once the big guys come in, and that would be like pharma companies, big pharma companies like Pfizer and DuPont and all those companies like that. Even in this situation, big tobacco companies may be getting into it as well because they have the infrastructure to produce this product. That's when I think will be the next shakeout, but I think we're about 5-10 years down the line from that. I do think that the processing is where it's going to be. I just think that owners who are looking to get into that business entrepreneurs that are looking to get into that business need to take a hard look at being very cost effective. And that's where we come in, because we sell used equipment that's at half the price, at least, of what people are paying new.
Well, that you're also getting, what I like about that is you're getting a better quality machine, because you can go in and buy some of these machines for half the price because of maybe you're buying them from China or you're some other place in the world where they're just making the products cheaper, but you also see it in the quality and the maintenance on the machines, right? I mean, as as you're using them over the years or whatever. So
Yes.
being able to get something for half the price that's twice as good of a machine it's hard to beat. I mean, yeah, things are on sale right now. And, I've talked to a lot of different processors, and the bottleneck is the processing, right? We're in this,
Right.
they've got plenty of farmers have produced plenty of raw material to process. Is there the right equipment out there for these processors? Is it like enough to do this job very well, or are we still waiting for somebody to design and build some of the processing equipment that's needed to really make this a full-fledged industry?
I think that equipment is actually out there. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of crossover of equipment that can be used in different industries. And I would say, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I would say that cannabis customers that call in looking to buy equipment are generally a little bit less informed about they're coming to us with, I want to do this. They may have looked at a machine and it may not be right for what they want, and we'll direct them in the appropriate direction. They may even come to us and say, hey, we want to do this. We want to dry our cannabis. We want to freeze our cannabis. We want to do this. How do I do that? What machine do I do with that? And then the salesman can go from there. Our salesmen are experts in the machinery, so they know what's going on. We've got a couple engineers on staff that work with people on very specific issues. So the equipment is definitely out there. It's just people, most people that work at pharma companies or food and beverage, food science companies like that, they're engineers, they're chemical engineers, they're process engineers. They've had schooling in this type of work, so they know exactly what they're looking for, exactly what they need. And I think one of the things that we need to be better on, and we need to work on how to do better, is how to inform customers about what they need. And if they don't know what they need, how we can get them what they need. How we can understand better what they need and get them that information. That's why on our cannabis website, our used cannabis marketplace website, we have an Ask the Experts tab. And we have Canna advisors on there. A guy named Chris Newman, who I've met at the show as well. We, agreed. We put them up on our website just so people can ask them questions if they have questions outside of equipment. We have a guy who works in Chicago on cannabis law, getting licenses, all that sort of stuff. David Ruskin from H&B Legal Counsel. And basically, we're trying to help people as much as we can, because we want to make everyone more informed. And the more informed people are, the better business decisions they can make. And if these people aren't in business and this industry is gone, we don't make money either. So we are in the interest of keeping people along and helping them out.
That's great. Well, Andy, where can people reach out to you if they want to either talk to you about some equipment they're looking for, or they just have some questions about, I've got this to sell and I don't know really where to sell it to, and how can they reach out to you and talk to you? Absolutely.
So our website is www.aaronequipment.com. Aaron is spelled Aaron. There is a used cannabis marketplace button to go onto on there. You can just search us online. Cannabis equipment will come up first. My email is andy@aaronequipment.com. Please feel free to reach out to me directly if that's how you want to do it. You can go through our website to fill out a form if you have something to sell. If you're looking to buy, you can just look at everything that's listed right there and request some quotes. You guys can call me if you'd like. My direct line is 630-238-7555. Yeah, that's pretty much the best way to reach me. If you're looking to buy something, I am not a salesman, so I'll introduce you to one of our salesmen who will help you out from there. But I'm also always looking just to hear about the industry. If you've got something you want to talk about with me, even if you don't have anything to sell or buy, I'm very happy to have a conversation, create a relationship. It's always good to learn as much as you can from as many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think big key to all this is information. We've got a lot of places and sources that we can get an influx of information with. I mean, the internet is huge. I think the issue is what's real and what's not. and deciding if that is the correct information. There's so many different sources. So guys like you that are really, aware of the machinery aspect and what's needed is extremely helpful. So thank you so much for doing that. I also want to ask the listeners out there, if they're interested in breaking down on some of this equipment, if they have comments on it or they have more questions on it, you can feel free to ask me. I can ask Andy, or you can go directly to Asking Andy. And then please go to plantproblem.com and you can ask your questions and comments there. Also, just subscribe to Plant Problems. There's a subscription area right there that you can tie into. And you can also catch me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I think, Andy, you've got a LinkedIn as well, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So you can reach Andy as well on LinkedIn. And I want to thank everybody for listening out there today. And I can't wait to share my next interview with you guys. Hope you guys are having a great day. Bye for now.
You've just listened to another insightful episode of Plant Problems. If you like what you heard so far, don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. For additional resources or to leave a review, head over to plantproblem.com. Join us again next week on Plant Problems with Tony Frischknecht. We look forward to having conversations with you as we go along this journey.